Hey, and welcome back to Fundamentals of Tourism. I have Paul with me today, who's going to help me talk about cultural tourism and a little bit of international tourism. Hey, Paul, I got a question for you. Have you ever traveled outside the country?
I haven't.
You have not. Is there anywhere
I
you'd
have
like to
not.
go?
Yeah, I've always wanted to go to Italy and Switzerland,
So,
actually.
what's in Italy that you'd like to see?
I've always loved Italian food.
All right, can't argue with
I,
that.
Venice, I've heard is beautiful,
Okay.
and I've always wanted to go to Switzerland. My aunt and uncle got married and went and stayed at a castle for their honeymoons. They said that was pretty sweet.
Yeah, there aren't a lot of castles in America.
Yeah, I know.
It's just not an option. It's
Yeah,
funny you say Venice. Venice is an international heritage site. There is nowhere else like it in the world. It is unique and beautiful and special and a huge tourist draw.
that's what I've
So
heard.
so let's get started on this. So all right. So what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk primarily about cultural tourism and just kind of how it motivates people to travel. Um, and there are lots of things that fall under cultural tourism. So here I've got a chart that kind of shows the different reasons or you know aspects of what attracts people to a region when they travel. And so, there's things like special events, entertainment, and activities, and climate, and all that. But a big chunk of that is culture. It's like, I want to go to a place that has castles. I want to go to get Italian food made by Italian people. So that's the cultural aspect. I mean, culture is a lot of things. It could be, you want to see how they work or dress. You want to see the architecture. Like I said, there are no castles in America. If you want to see castles, you pretty much have to go to Europe, where the siege warfare was part of the culture, and so they built these giant structures. Or maybe you want to go see the things they make, or you're really into history. You want to go to Rome, or you said you want to go to Italy. You want to go to see Rome. You want to see the Colosseum. Um, Maybe it's a language thing. You want to immerse yourself in a foreign language or learn about a foreign religion. You want to go somewhere to learn. So there are all these things. There's art, there's music, there's food. Food is a perfectly valid reason to travel and go somewhere, and is a very big one.
Yeah, that's my number one reason for anything.
Yeah, I think said it in another class that my wife jokes with me because we were talking about bucket lists of things that I want to accomplish. She said, "You realize your bucket list is just places you want to eat," and I was like, "Yeah, that sounds about right."
My wife would probably say the same thing.
But where would you like to go eat? Like, what are the things that appeal to you?
Oh man. So I've been to New York a few times, but I mean, I don't think you can really ever try all the food in New York. But I've
Right.
always wanted to have like an actual Chicago deep dish pizza.
Okay. Hey, I'll make a recommendation for you if you're looking for a place to go and have some good food that's kind of surprising.
Mm.
Cleveland is the best food city I've ever been to.
Cleveland,
Yeah,
Ohio.
yeah, Cleveland, Ohio. And like I've been to Manhattan, I've been to San Francisco, and the food there is amazing and awesome. For its size and for affordability, Cleveland is amazing. And
Okay.
well, Michael Simons, the guy who's on the Food Network with a little soul patch bald guy,
Yeah.
he's from there. He has about a dozen restaurants there. Check it out. The food is fantastic and
Believe.
affordable. It's not expensive like San Francisco or New York.
Yeah.
Okay, so cultural and heritage tourism. Basically this is traveling because I want to experience something that I can't do here, and I want to see it in its context. And so I teach about tourism and I do research about tourism, and there's this terrible word in tourism, authenticity. So it says right here in the definition, activities that authentically represent stories. Man, authenticity is so important because that's when you go somewhere, that's what you want to see. You want to go see the real thing. You want to go get a Chicago deep dish pizza made in the Chicago style. You don't want to go to Chicago and go to Sbarro. You want to go and get the real deal. But what authenticity means, once you start scratching the surface, it gets really hard to figure out what authenticity means. So I'm just going to use the word authentic and not get too deep of like, well, does that mean that it originated in the area? Like, pizza's not even authentic to Chicago, or
Mm.
is it? So it becomes this whole complicated issue. So we'll just kind of skip over that, what authenticity means. Okay, so if I'm going to do cultural tourism, like I'm the place, and I want to use cultural tourism as a draw to bring people in. There's some ways I should do it. One, it needs to be done intelligently. Nothing is worse than going to a place where it feels like, I don't want to say they're making fun of it, but that they're going after the lowest common denominator. So some examples of that. Have you ever been to Cherokee, North Carolina?
I think so actually, but not. It's been a while.
Cherokee, North Carolina is what's called a tourist trap. It is, they have casino gambling there. They have all sorts of Native American attractions. And yet I guarantee you every single one of those trinkets you buy that's Native American was made in East Asia somewhere.
Yeah.
And none of it feels real. None of it feels authentic. None of it feels accurate. Like they're dressing like how we kind of think Native Americans dress, but I don't know if if the Native Americans from North Carolina wore giant eagle feather headdresses or, dressed in buckskin or, like, I don't know if any of that is accurate. It doesn't feel right. And so
Mm.
for cultural attractions, we should do them in an intelligent manner, but we should also be creative with them. Like, just because you're coming up with a creative way to do it doesn't mean that it has to be inauthentic or disrespectful. There's some amazing things like the guided tours right here on this island. You can go to Fort Frederica and you can get a guided tour where you don't even have to have, you don't have to have a tour. You can actually use your electronic device and it'll go around and tell you about the various things. And that's a creative use. That's a creative way to show the history. Another thing that's very common with historical sites like that is becoming augmented reality. Are you familiar with augmented reality?
Mm.
It's a really interesting idea. So imagine you have an app on your phone and you're walking through. Have you been to Fort Frederica ever?
Yes.
Okay, so imagine you're walking through the site, and you look around and basically it's some grassy hills. But you hold your phone up and look through the camera, and it will show you the buildings that were there as if they were there. So like when you move your camera around, it's like you're looking at it as it existed in 1700.
That's wild.
Yeah, and so it's actually superimposing this representation of the buildings on the actual landscape and showing you how it was.
Huh.
And so like that's a really neat way to do this sort of stuff where it's a different way of doing it, allowing people to do it on their own. And one reason we want to do it intelligently and creatively is the fact that we're living in an age of uniformity. Now, and this is one that if you ever been to what's the place in South Carolina? Hilton Head.
Yes.
You've been to Hilton Head.
Yes.
So imagine you're driving down the main drag in Hilton Head, and you could be in Virginia Beach, you could be in Amelia Island, you could be. There's no way to tell because it's all the same chains, it's all the same architecture. They've done a pretty good job of making it generic, which
Palm
is
trees everywhere.
Yeah, and so I mean it's fine, but no, you go there to go to the beach, but no one goes there because they want, say, a low country experience or they want to experience Gullah Geechee culture or anything like. They have made it the same. The Golden Isles does a very good job of kind of differentiating Jekyll and St. Simon's from other island destinations. St. Simon's fights real hard to keep the trees in place and to keep the buildings not too gigantic. And Jekyll doesn't allow much development at all. And so that is what they're trying to do is maintain the things that make them unique. Okay, some numbers just to give you some idea of why we care. About 70% or 78% of all leisure travelers, when you travel, will do a cultural heritage activity. And so, think about this when you've traveled, Paul. Have you ever you go into a city you've never been to. It's like, I really want to go see this building that's famous, or I really want to go see this stadium, or I really want to go to Chicago and eat a deep dish pizza. You ever had that thing you want to do for a place
Oh
you've never
yeah,
been? Yeah.
definitely, yeah.
Yeah. And so that's, those are cultural activities, to those things that are unique to that place.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm a big football fan.
so
Not
where do you want to go?
necessarily not necessarily a Green Bay Packers fan, but I feel like every football fan should go to a Green Bay Packers game at least once.
Sure. It's not like anything else.
Yeah, I was so lucky to go one time, and it was amazing.
Did you get to go in the winter when it's really cold?
December 5th,
All right. So you
the
got the full
frozen tundra.
experience.
It was great.
Yeah. And so, I mean, what makes going to Green Bay different, say, than like going to see the Falcons?
Just the passion these guys have. Because I mean, like the stadium is just in the middle of a neighborhood.
Yeah.
You have people's houses right across the street from it. These guys wake up, drink some beer, and just walk on over. And
Yeah. And that's the
it's
thing.
all they have.
It's really a small market. Like when you look at Green Bay, it's like they shouldn't be big enough to have an NFL team. So
Yeah.
they have to be extra passionate to keep them there. And if I remember right, they're a publicly owned team. Like they're owned by the city rather than a person.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so like it's just a different experience. And if you want to have that experience, it's kind of a throwback. That's where you have to go. So about 118 million adults do cultural tourism, and people who travel, who experience cultural tourism as they travel, one reason we care, they spend more money. People who do this on average spend about $1,000 on a trip versus a normal traveler spend about 611. So that's a lot of money. If you can draw people into your area and give them these cultural experiences, they'll spend more money. And they stay longer. They stay about 5 days versus 4 days. So again, just it's an attractive market to go after. Okay, so what am I talking about? Things like visiting historic sites. I'm going to go to this city and I want to go see where something happened. I want to go see Bloody Marsh. I want to go see Fort Frederica. I want to go see Lovers Oak. There are all these things locally that people want to travel and see. Or if you're in, maybe you want to go see a Confederate battlefield, or maybe you want to go see a Revolutionary War battlefield, or maybe you want to go see, you want to go to the Baseball Hall of Fame. All these are historic sites that people visit. People go for historic reenactments. People travel to go to museums or art galleries. You ever been to a museum or art gallery?
I have.
Where'd you go?
To the Museum of Natural History was it New York? Washington, D.C.?
In Washington, D.C.?
Yeah, D.C., yeah.
Now, was that what you went to D.C. for, or did you do it while you're there?
I just did it while I was there.
Well, that's the thing about cultural tourism. It's this add-on that, everybody does them, but these are the things that make the trip special, better, unique. This is the value in traveling, really.
Yeah.
People travel for arts or crafts fairs or festivals a lot. I don't know if you've had Dr. Mosley, but he does research on music festivals, and that's his thing. And so, people travel for those reasons, going to see a dance or a performance, going to a national park. I'm a big fan of the national parks, as it hasn't come across in class. I've worked in 2 of them. I think they're a great, great thing. And each one of them is unique and has a special character. So like I used to work in Glacier National Park. And if you get a chance, you should go. But it was built by the Pacific Northern Railway because they ran a train between Chicago and Seattle. And there was really nothing to do on that trip. And they needed a reason to increase business and get people to take the trip. So they built lodges basically in this super beautiful area. So even now, if you want to, you can take a train into Glacier National Park. There are 2 train stations in the park. You can take a train into the park. It's a great way to get there. But it's amazing because the lodges are 5-story tall log buildings. And so the logs are 12 and 15 feet around. There's no way these structures could be built today. And there's nothing else like it. Going shopping in museum stores. There's a reason why museums are laid out the way they are with the with the gift shop at the end. It's to encourage shopping. Or maybe it's going to explore neighborhoods. I've done this before where there's particular types of architecture or things I want to see. And so, these are all reasons people travel. Another kind of cultural tourism that I find really interesting is called life seeing tourism. And this is the idea of I'm going to go somewhere, but I don't want to just stay in the hotel. So if you said you want to go to Switzerland, right? What do you want to see in Switzerland?
It just looks like a beautiful place.
Okay. So what you probably don't want to go is go to Switzerland and like stay in a Marriott and eat at a McDonald's, right?
I don't know about McDonald's.
It's like what like why go to Switzerland if you're going to do that? I can do that here.
Right.
So life seeing tourism is going even deeper into that. And so it's looking for activities. It's like getting to experience the way real people live in the area. So Denmark and the Bahamas are kind of at the forefront of this. And what Denmark does is if you go to Denmark and you want, they will give you a student guide. Like if you're a hospitality student, part of your studies is when people come to the country, you're their tour guide while they're there. And you take them, like they want to go eat with a family, you arrange for them to go eat with a family. They want to go see the local shopping rather than like the tourist shopping. You go with them there. You show them what the locals do. Maybe, you take them to park. You just explore with them and get them to live like a normal experience of being there. And so that's an amazing thing that the government of Denmark promotes, that both for the students, like if you're a hospitality student, you become a host as part of being a student. But also if you're there, to have someone who's like your personal tour guide.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And Bahamas does the same thing. And they have about 1,500 volunteers there who do things like if you're going to the Bahamas and you don't want to stay at the hotel, you go eat at home with them, or things like that. And so that's another really kind of advanced or forward-thinking idea in tourism. Other things about cultural tourism is like it is the romance of travel. You get to do the real thing. When you go there, you're kind of trying to imagine yourself in that culture. How would I react if I lived in Japan? What would it be like to be here every day? And one thing we need to keep in mind as professionals is actually as much thought, or actually more thought and fun, goes into planning the travel than going on the travel. I don't know about you. Do you find yourself just like kind of daydreaming? It's like, yeah, man, one day I'm going to go there and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And you're constantly like, well, can I do both those things in one day? And you're planning it out.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of fun, but then like once you get there, you're tired from traveling, and you kind of end up staying at the hotel and eating and having some beer.
Yeah. But that's part of it, is like the big attraction for travel. A lot of it is in the planning. It is the pre-event. So this is why it's important to have things like very good interactive websites and lots of information, because the planning is the fun. And so we want to create the tools that allow people to have as much of that experience as possible before they even leave. Okay. Other things about cultural tourism. Wow, just real blank there. Was like, how do we promote it? One of the beauties of this is that anything can be cultural tourism. Anything that your area has to offer that is unique or weird or unusual, you can build tourism around it. Use existing institutions. You put some educational content to it. So things like heritage trails, where things like this is the path that people used to take to market, or this is, a historic trail that was used to travel. Like Highway 66. Highway 66 used to be the main east-west corridor for the United States, but when the interstate came, it shut down. But now it's a tourist attraction because you get to go see these old-fashioned gas stations and old-fashioned car culture and stuff. Anything can be turned into education. Into
kind of like the Golden Ray, the ship that tipped over.
Yeah, that is because like that there was a bump. People want to come see this boat tipped over.
Right.
And, I used to live in Ohio, and I lived in a little Rust Belt town. Like just, imagine a little manufacturing town that's seen better days. But they did have one thing. They had the prison there where the Shawshank Redemption was filmed. And so that has become it generates over $2 million a year now in tourism dollars. People wanting to go see where it was filmed. They do things like you can go on ghost hunts there. They have Halloween events there. You can, people get married. It's because it's a big, beautiful, impressive structure. They have weddings there. And so like they worked with what they had. It's like, well, we have a prison, and so they built a tourism economy around it. And you can do that with most anything, You go to Atlanta, you can go on the Coca-Cola tour. I've got one here, and the 127 yard sale. And I'm going to post. I've got a bunch of videos in this PowerPoint. I'm going to post all the videos for you to watch. But the 127 yard sale is a 900-mile long yard sale. It goes from Alabama up to like Connecticut.
It's crazy.
Along Highway 127. And so it's one of those things that just people, it kind of grew and became a thing. And now it's this gigantic, people spend, 2 weeks to drive the length of it. And what it is everyone that lives along the highway they have a yard sale. And so it's just mile after mile after mile of junk, and for some people that's a lot of fun. And so like, can you imagine like creating a tourist attraction out of a yard sale?
No, but that's a cool idea. That's just unique.
Yeah, I'll post a video to it so you can see it. And you build your attractions after certain themes. So sometimes we twin, like we take another city and we pair with them, like sister cities and stuff like that. But then cities create their own attractions. Chicago has something called Taste of Chicago. And if you want a pizza, you should go to Chicago then. So what they do, they block off the streets in downtown Chicago. All the local restaurants create street booths and have special food out there that they're selling that's street food. And then like every other block, they put up stages and have live music and bands and stuff around there. And it goes on for like 4 days, and you can just walk around downtown Chicago, sample the food from all these restaurants, watch all these live shows. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, sounds great.
What's that?
Sounds great.
I mean, it's a fantastic activity. And I'll post a video showing it. But, again, what did they do? Well, let's just close off the street, Star City, and get the restaurateurs involved. It's not like they built, a theme park or anything. They just kind of worked with what they had. Because Chicago has a great food culture. Balloon Fest is, like I said, I used to live in Ohio. Ashland, Ohio had something every year called Balloon Fest. It was one of the largest hot air balloon festivals in the country. And what Ashland had to offer was a gigantic public park. It was big enough to house like 60 hot air balloons. And so that's what they did. They created this event, and it draws thousands of people every year. Other advantages or why you might be interested in, if you're a tourism provider, is one, most of these things aren't going to be dependent on good weather. Depending on what it is, but if someone's traveling for a museum, weather doesn't matter. If someone's traveling for a dance recital or art or something like that, the weather doesn't matter. And also what it does is it stretches out your season, or it eliminates seasonality, because people come here to the Golden Isles to go to the beach. And then when it's not beach time, the resorts are constantly trying to provide people with reasons to come. Mm-hmm. So the cultural tourism is, those are those reasons to travel. Other parts of cultural tourism, anthropography. Anthropography. I want to say anthropology, but it's not.
Anthropography?
Yeah. But, it is the study of humankind in its geographic distribution. And what that means, different places people live in different lifestyles. So on the left, I've got a picture here of some musicians. You have any idea what that is?
No.
That is actually a Gullah Geechee cultural festival. Now, do you know what the Gullah Geechee are?
No.
Okay. So this is kind of interesting. The Gullah and Geechee are a Creole culture that is unique to the barrier islands of North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. So it is a mixture of Native American, early slave cultures, and they've kind of melded together. Their food is unique. Their music is unique. They have their own language, and it only existed on these barrier islands, largely in rice plantations. They're different from anywhere else. So there is a group called the Sea Island Players who are dancers and musicians here, and they are famous for this unique style of dance and music. And so that's what this is. Right here, these are Gullah Geechee performers, either Gullah or Geechee. It's two slightly different things, but it's a Creole culture. So people come here to this area because that's something that you can only get here. Now, the other picture here on the right is another really fascinating but wildly different. Just I want to go see people live the way they live, and this is a cave city in New Mexico. So this is, I think, the Anasazi Indians lived there, but this is up on the side of a mountain. And so this is essentially a city they built in a cave on the side of a mountain. And, it's just it's unlike anywhere else on earth. And so these are the sorts of things that people travel because you want to see. So different parts of tourism, there's ethnic tourism. I want to experience something from this area, the way these people live. Cultural tourism, historic tourism, environmental, recreation, business, they all kind of blend together. It's hard to, like, if I have a museum where you have to pay a fee to enter, is that business tourism or is that cultural tourism? It's like they overlap.
Mm.
So I'm going to talk about some of the traditional parts of cultural tourism. This one is easy, the fine arts. I want to go to museums. I want to go to fancy places and see fancy things like paintings and sculptures and graphic arts. So here we have a picture of me. Do you recognize the painting I'm standing in front of?
I feel like I've seen it before, but I don't know what it is.
It's a really famous painting called Whistler's Mother. Whistler's the name of the artist, but it's like this really famous painting, and this is taken at the Musée d'Orsay in Paris. I was taking some students here on a study abroad, and I'm just walking through the aisle. It's like, hey, wait, I know that picture. I've seen it before. And so, stopped and got a picture taken in front of it. Or the Louvre, and I'll put up a link to the Louvre. The Louvre is actually across the street from the Musée d'Orsay. The Musée d'Orsay is modern art. The Louvre is classical art, both in Paris. It's an amazing, amazing place to go. I can't stress highly enough that if you ever get the chance to go to the Louvre, go there because it will stun you. Because you'll walk and you'll say, I've seen that painting before. I've seen that sculpture before. Oh, there's the Venus de Milo. There's the Mona Lisa. It's like every famous piece of art you can think of is there. And so people travel there to see them. It's like, if I'm going to go see art, this is the place to go.
That's where the originals are held?
Yes. Yeah. For like the Venus de Milo is there. What is it? The Mona Lisa's there. The painting they made a meme of the guy pointing like this, like the old-fashioned painting of the guy pointing, that's there. Like any art you can think of really is there. King Tut's sarcophagus, it's like,
oh wow,
it's crazy. And what so with museums like that, the hotels work closely. They create tours. They have shuttle buses. All this because people are going there to see the museum. It works to their benefit to make it as easy as possible. So that's fine art, or maybe people travel for music and dance. So are you a music fan? Like, would you travel to see something?
Not necessarily.
Okay, never traveled for a concert or anything, and
I've been to concerts, but nah, I mostly travel for food.
okay. So you can go for a concert, or maybe you want to go to a city, and there's certain places that are known for their music, like Memphis. You want to hear, the blues, you go to Memphis. Chicago, kind of the same. You want to see country music, you go to Nashville. But there are other places that are smaller, and I'll put up the link. There's a place called Muscle Shoals in Alabama. Now, Muscle Shoals is a little tiny town in Alabama, yet thousands of people go there each year because this is where bands like the Rolling Stones, a lot of famous R&B groups, Leonard Skinner, there are tons and tons and tons of famous bands that recorded there. And it's a little tiny town in Alabama, but they were renowned for having good musicians. And so they have built their tourism business around going there to see the history of their music. Dance, the same kind of thing. You're going to see ballet. I put a link here to something called Ballet Folklorico, which is, I discovered this a few years ago. It's really quite fascinating. But Mexico has their own indigenous ballet style, and it's called Ballet Folklorico. And so if you want to learn about this, you go to Mexico and see it. So again, another reason why people travel for cultural tourism. Or industry. And I'm going to skip over the word authenticity again because it's a terrible word. But people go and they want to see the real thing. I used to live in Ohio in an Amish community, which was interesting. But people go there. What's that?
I bet.
Yeah, I woke up one morning. I walked in my backyard with a cup of coffee, and turned around and yelled to my wife in the house. It's like, "What, Delia? There's a horse in our backyard." And what had happened was one of the neighbors was getting some work done on their house by an Amish craftsman, and he tied the horse up to the fence and had gotten loose and wandered into my backyard. And so it was a little different living there. But that was an authentic experience. But people go there and they want to, you go there, if you're going to buy an Amish quilt, you don't want one that was made in Japan or China. You want one that was made by, you imagine a little Amish woman sewing it all together. And so authenticity is important for those sorts of things. One of the most amazing experiences I had when I lived there was I had a foreign exchange student from Japan live with us, and she wanted to learn more about the Amish. So I had a friend who was an educator who put me in touch with someone. One of the most fascinating people I've ever met. He wasn't Amish, but he was a Mennonite farmer. So very traditional, no, hat, shirt, suspenders, the whole thing. His wife and kids wore a bonnet and didn't have a phone. But they invited us into their home, and we got to eat with them. We visited their farm. Just an amazing experience. Their house had been part of the Underground Railway. They had a hidden room in the living room where slaves had been hidden when they were being transported. Wow. Just a fascinating experience. But, like a real experience. There's no way you could go to an Amish mall and get that experience. And those are the sort of things that people generally want. Industry can also be a really big draw. Like you go to Atlanta. Right? If you're going to go to Atlanta and you want to hit a tourist thing to do, well, you can do the Coca-Cola bottling tour, the Coke factory tour, right? So basically, you're touring a factory. That is an industry tour. Industry tours are surprisingly popular. You go places, you want to see how things are made or where they come from. Agriculture also pulls people in, going to farmers markets, going to wine country in Southern California or in New York or in France. You can do wine tours. You can do cheese tours. I've got a video here. I'm going to put this link up too, where it says farm tours. But this is, you can actually go to Hawaii and tour pineapple plantations. And they're beautiful. They're out in the mountains and in the middle of the Hawaiian countryside, and you get a 2-hour-long tour of the facility. People go for educational reasons, vocational learning, study abroad opportunities. Study abroad is tourism. People are going not permanently, but to another area. You ever wanted to do study abroad?
I used to.
Yeah.
But then I got married and didn't.
Yeah, that changes things, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. We had a foreign exchange student live with us, like I said, from Japan. That was a really neat experience. Still get Christmas presents from her every year.
Nice.
Yeah. Literature and language. People want to go to the places where their favorite books either were set or were written. So let's go through these. A lot of people go to Oxford, Mississippi. Oxford, Mississippi is where Ole Miss is, but it's also where a lot of literature comes from. Like for people who are big into Faulkner, which I can't imagine why you would be, because it's so incredibly not fun to read. But in America, Oxford, Mississippi is one of these literature centers. But how about this one, 221B Baker Street? Any idea what that is?
I have no idea. I was sitting there trying to think about it. I have no idea.
221B Baker Street, that's the address for Sherlock Holmes. So in the TV show Sherlock with Benedict Cumberbatch, he lives there. The one that has Lucy Liu in it, that's where she's at. Every movie, Sherlock Holmes lives at 221B Baker Street. And when you go to London and you go to 221B Baker Street, basically the whole street is dedicated to Sherlock Holmes.
Makes sense.
There's tons of stuff to see there, places to get your pictures taken, stuff you can buy. And it's based off of a fictional character. I told you that in Ohio I work with the place where they filmed the Shawshank Redemption. That's film tourism, and like I said, they get millions of dollars a year of people traveling wanting to see where the movie The Shawshank Redemption was filmed. In Savannah, there was a book there, probably 25 years ago, called Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, that was set in Savannah. It was about a murder. I mean, it had murder, it had local people, it had, all the good things that make a good, exploitative book. But it was wildly popular, and still to this day, they have Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil tours in Savannah. Because of this book, it's 30 years old now. And it's still a viable business. People travel for science. I want to go to a planetarium. I want to go to a zoo. I want to go to Georgia Southern. They have a raptor center where you can go see big birds of prey. You're nodding your head. Have you been there?
I have, yeah.
You've been to the raptor center? So
I have.
You've been a science tourist.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. Actually, around here, we're looking at the possibility of space tourism because, SpaceX is looking to build the spaceport here, and it will draw people in. I myself, when I was in college, actually drove down to Cocoa Beach to watch the space shuttle take off once. That's space tourism. White Sands is in New Mexico. That's where the atomic bomb program was born. That's, again, an important historic site. People travel there for that. The Cosmodrome is a fascinating location. So when the Soviet Union fell in the late 1980s, their space program was largely abandoned. And so they had built a gigantic city out in the middle of Siberia. So imagine this city that's 700 miles from anything. So they just built a city in the middle of the wilderness, state-of-the-art city, that was dedicated to their space program. So everybody that worked there was a space scientist. This is where all the rocket launches took off. This is all. And when when the government fell, they abandoned it. And so now it's become a tourist destination. You can go see this abandoned city full of rockets.
Wow.
In the middle of the woods. Really fascinating. And I'll put up the link to that.
Kind of like putting a city with a bunch of slot machines in the middle of a desert, huh?
Yeah, and there's a whole reason they did that too. I teach casino and gaming management, so like the history of Las Vegas is a big part of that.
Huh.
But I'll tell you one kind of some reasons why they put it there. One, it was where the trains stopped to get water when they went out west. So one, it was a train stop, and two, they built the Hoover Dam there. And so when they built the dam, they have like 30,000 workers in the middle of the desert with nothing to do. So you got like a bunch of 20 to 30-year-olds loaded with money and nothing to do. So it's like, how do we keep them out of trouble? Well, let's legalize gambling and prostitution. And
Right.
you get Las Vegas. And
Right.
that's pretty much where it came from. People travel for government. Like, I want to see stuff about the government. If you go to Washington, D.C., there are so many places in D.C. to go visit. I want to go to the Washington Monument. I want to go to the Vietnam War Memorial. There's so many things there to see and experience. Religion. People travel for religious reasons. I want to go to Israel. I want to go to where the Bible was written. I want to go to Lourdes, which is famous for miracles. I want to go to Mecca because I am Muslim, and once in my life I'm expected to go if I can. I want to go to St. Peter's because I want to see the Pope. Again, this is cultural tourism. Religion is part of culture. Okay, so that is pretty much it for cultural tourism. You have any questions, Paul?
No, that was good. It's fun.
Anything you want to
add? No.
Good. I like putting you on the spot like that.
Yeah, appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you for helping me out.
Yeah, my pleasure. It was fun.
All right. And we are done here.
All right. Have a good one. Thank you.